Hi, this is Danielle Morrill. I'm here with the growth marketing team at GitLab. It's Thursday, July 9th, and this is our weekly recap. Starting us off is Nyle with our metrics update for the week.
Hi everyone, so I'm just going to read out the current metric updates. So basically at the moment we are 74.7% through the quarter as of 2020, or 7th of the 1st, 2020, or 1st of 7th, 2020, apologies. So going into the pace so far, the goals, the increase to the website traffic is over 20% year over year. We're currently on track with users plus 23.74%. Page user up 21.8% year on year. For the inbound marketing qualified leads for commitments for Q2 full year 21. Slightly at risk for the large, which is 3,719 of 5,500, which is currently at 67.6% of the attainment at a 90.4% pace. We're on track for both mid-market and SMB. The on track for mid-market is 92% attainment, and on the SMB we're currently at 96.2%. So the pipeline generation, which is to deliver $80 million of pipeline, we're on track. It's 174.1% attainment at a pace of 334%. And currently then we have a AAA June with the low estimate of 7.1% or 7.1 million. So that is currently at 52.357 of 80 million, which is 65.4% attainment at a pace of 125.7%. So let's hand it back over to Danielle.
Awesome, thanks Nyle. So the TLDR is we're on track for everything we care about, and while we're at risk with large MQLs, the feedback we've been getting is don't worry about that too much. But Stephen's going to talk about when we were addressing that a little bit further down here. But without further ado, let's go into show and tell, which is where we kind of like to highlight things that got finished this week or important things that got started, links and documents that each other should read. And Rebecca Dodd, you are first.
Thanks. I'm actually going to share my screen this time so people watching the video can see what I'm talking about. So this isn't exclusive to this week, but just wanted to give an update on blog metrics. This is something that we're working on improving the kind of consistency of reporting in the next quarter. Numbers is not an area of strength for me, so I'm looking forward to learning more about this. But I pulled numbers from the last 3 months, and it's good to see that in 2 out of 3 of those metrics, we've got improvements, especially since we paused publishing for 3 weeks, or publishing at our regular cadence for 3 weeks in June. So it's good to see that that hasn't had an adverse impact, and it does reinforce something that we've realized before, which is that more posts doesn't necessarily mean more views. Just a couple of shout outs. Suri wrote the most popular blog post for that period with 23,263 unique views. That was published back in March. And then Euritsi wrote the top post that was published during these past 3 months with 13,301 unique views. So thanks both for contributing to the blog. I linked at the bottom over here the epic that we're working on to improve this reporting, to make it a little bit more repeatable and easy to digest. So that's what's going on there. I'll hand it back to you, Danielle, to talk about the refresh strategy.
Can I ask the question before you hand it off?
Yeah, sure.
Can you just explain a little bit why we might give a 3-month rolling view versus a 1-month view? We do have a 1-month report in our blog dashboard, but can you kind of give us a little explanation why it's a little bit more meaningful to look at the 3-month view?
Sure. So the 1-month view at the moment, the only way that we have is to filter it by the calendar month. So any blog post that was published towards the end of the month, we don't really get a chance to capture how well it did. If something was published on the 28th but really took off, that won't be visible from the monthly report. And particularly just for this past month, looking at June, we didn't publish for a large chunk of the month. So I didn't want to limit it just to talking about June, obviously, because it's not representative of how things usually work on the blog. Is there anything I'm missing there, Erica?
No, I think exactly what I, was hoping you would cover was if something's published on the 28th or the 30th, it'll report basically no views. And we want to capture the traffic it gets after that point in time.
All right. If there are no other questions on blog metrics, I'll hand it over to Danielle.
Thanks, Rebecca. I'm going to share my screen as well. So what I'd like to talk about briefly is this Epic for the website refresh strategy. So this is a bit of an outline right now because ultimately the details will be filled in more by Michael's team, Shane, Becky, and there's also a lot of other stakeholders. Some of them are listed here, people who care about the website. We've been talking pretty much since I joined marketing about the marketing site, and frankly, I've been talking about the need for CMS since even before then, just comes up naturally through trying to make blog posts and partnering with Rebecca. Even like blogging for Meltano was kind of challenging at times. I see her nodding her head. So this is a phased Epic. It's fairly long. This is kind of going to be a parent Epic so that when people have questions about how does this all fit together and where does this roadmap, how does it flow, this will be an important link you'll probably want to refer back to. So I'm going to give a brief overview of what's in here. And then I would highly recommend that you take a look at the underlying epics, which have a lot more detail. So just to give you some sense of the baseline that we are at right now, we get roughly 1.75 million monthly users. So on our front page of on all the pages of about.gitlab.com. So it's an incredible amount of traffic, and it's both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing in the sense that when we want to A/B test things or when we want to push something out, we have a big audience we can do that with. The challenge is that when we're not happy with the way our brand is presented or when we need to do a messaging overhaul, it can feel very risky to make changes just because there's so many people here. So this is a bit of even though we don't like to do monolithic things at GitLab, this can become a project that's easy to view as something monolithic because it feels scary to change. So what we've done in this document is we've tried to clarify the audiences and the goals that this is trying to achieve. The truth is we're probably going to have quite a bit of conflict around, what is the goal of a given page? Which audience are we serving? Which goal are we serving? That's just going to happen and that's okay. The better thing would be to just even have explicit goals on a per page basis. Like you can imagine how wonderful it would be if you were able to go into the code for any given page and at the very top commented out would be the goal for this page is X. And so then when you're working on the page, you can be thinking, okay, is the thing I'm doing to this page actually achieving the goal or not? Right now, we have a lot of pages where that's not clear. So we'll be working to clarify that. And Stephen's going to talk about the details of the enterprise page in just a little bit here. And I don't want to steal his thunder, but I'll just say at a high level, the reason that we're starting there is to pick a low risk way to practice iteration and efficiency in our team and cross-functionally. So it's a brand new page, and that means we don't have a bunch of stakeholders who've already written copy and already have leads or other things coming into a page that we have to go negotiate with. It's something we can create from scratch and we can just practice going quickly. And that's been really cool to see. This also takes away the risk of trying to just do something huge from the beginning and then getting stuck. So we want to kind of start to get some momentum. Each of these phases is not really waterfall. So like phase 2 is actually already underway as well. It's more like the maturity level of our ability to work on the website kind of increases with each phase. So at some point you can imagine the enterprise starter page will be live, we'll have iterated on it, and it'll just go into the update most visited pages, ongoing workflow, and we'll kind of graduate out of phase 1. Phase 2 is about inventorying our most visited and also most impactful pages. And so there's lots of different ways you could stack rank the pages on the site. Traffic's an easy one, but there's also things like which ones drive the most lead signups or which ones drive the most IACV attribution. But it's not really important to get overly caught up on the scoring system. We probably need to touch hundreds of pages and make them better. And so this is about working on creating a checklist, and I'm kind of speaking for Becky here, but the goal is let's just audit these pages, go through a checklist, make sure they meet some of the criteria. So that could be things like, is it SEO optimized? Does it have a CTA? Does it work on mobile? And just checking those things. Some of them will need big changes, and some of them basically can say, cool, it meets all the criteria, let's move on. So phase 2 will take a while, and we're going to start on it, but I would anticipate we'll see issues on phase 2, through Q3 and maybe even further. Phase 3 is about assets and content that live modularly across the site. So like the nav or things we reuse in lots of different places. And these are awesome because they're reusable. So when we improve them in one place, they improve everywhere. But they're also a little more controversial. Like what gets to go in the nav is something lots of people have opinions on. So we may need to spend some more time figuring that out and also clarifying the goals. I know this is already underway with navigation, but I think a lot of the rest of this is TBD. So then we're starting to move into like, the first three were more like tactical, I would say. The next phases are more about systems. So this starts getting into, we need a design system. And this is where we start saying, oh, we probably need a CMS, right? Because we need to implement something that's consistent across all the pages, that's templatized, that's reusable, that makes our web team super productive and happy. For those who don't know what a design system is, it can be something as simple as adopting a WordPress theme. It could be as complex as adopting something like Bootstrap and then building a bunch of custom styling on top of it. And there's a million flavors, in between. But the most important thing is just we have something that we can all use. Probably, again, these next three phases are end of year. If we are in a really good place with them, we'd be super happy. Then we need a system so we never get in this position that we're in today again. So we need a continuous improvement process so that we're always upgrading our pages and we're never really feeling like, wow, so much has gotten stale. How did we fall so far behind? And so that phase, you can imagine we're already thinking about that even by starting this epic, but that's something we'll probably have to work on. And then finally, as we partner with product growth, we can start running things like A/B tests and data-driven experimentation to drive goals. And that's kind of lets us begin to bridge the marketing site as not just a lead generator, but also potentially to activate people and to set them up properly so that they've seen the right content and been educated before they even take a trial so that they do the things we want them to do. So we know, for example, that if you invite one other person to join you in your GitLab account, the odds that you'll convert to paying basically double. So like things like that we can probably influence through marketing and to support the product team. So this is a really long map. And the way you can think about using this is each of the phases will have its own epic. And then even within the phase, we'll probably break out milestones for Q3 OKRs, Q4 OKRs, and then on into the future. So this will probably become like quite big and complex, and I don't want to say unwieldy, but maybe a little unwieldy. But I think the thing you can do whenever you were working on the website and you're just kind of wondering, why are we doing this thing? I don't see how this fits, or what is the strategy here? This is a good place to kind of come to check, like, which phase is it in and how does it fit? So I'm taking a little more time because I don't think I'll ever really revisit like a strategy epic again. Here we'll focus more on, delivered things, but just want to make sure you all know that it exists. Does anyone have any questions? Sorry about the dogs, by the way, but does anybody have any questions for me about that? Can I just get, as a tough crowd, can I get a thumbs up that that's cool? Like that's helpful. Also, it's like, this is GitLab. So if you don't agree with the things that are on there, let's work on it together. It's not like set in stone. I know it looks really formal and has like, some formatting and stuff, but it's new. So I'd really like your feedback. Okay, well, if you have questions, you can also ping me anytime. All right, next up is Vanessa.
Okay, so I'm gonna try and share my screen. This didn't work last time, so we will see. All right. Okay, so right now, Bree and I are working on updates to the content marketing handbook. This lives within the growth marketing handbook. And basically what we're doing is going through and defining the different types of assets that content marketing is responsible for creating, and then providing examples, and then going through and providing a sort of structured outline of what the process looks like from the content side. This is an iterative project, so we're going small piece by small piece, doing weekly updates to the handbook, and then eventually the goal is to just have a complete sort of list of what content is responsible for, what the expectations are, and what the timeline is for each type of project. That's kind of it for now, but maybe I'll provide updates as we get a little bit further along. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, and I think next up was Stephen.
Thanks, Vanessa. Let me share my screen here. Okay. Okay, yeah, so to just piggyback on kind of what Danielle was talking about. I think we're in, trying to remember the phases with all the COVID stuff going on. There's lots of phases. So this is much more exciting phase. I think we're still in phase 1. Correct me if I'm wrong, Danielle, but we're kind of in the project iteration phase. So in this specific case, we want to roll out an enterprise page. We don't really, I mean, we talk about enterprise, the fact that GitLab is suitable for enterprise and things like that, but we don't have sort of a sales focused enterprise page. So the goal here was to get something up that, you know, looks good and is more kind of sales focused, conversion driven. So I've been working closely with Erica and Becky, and Erica wrote a ton of copy in a really short time frame for this, and then we kind of just rolled with it. So here I'll show my screen, but this is essentially a MVC1 of what this page will look like. And to Danielle's point about quick iteration and efficiency, I actually tried not even designing the page first in like Figma or Sketch. I literally just kind of designed it as I coded it. So just something kind of playing around with, because I think we started this on like late Monday or Tuesday or something. So anyway, I'll kind of just run through it, but oh, it's not letting me refresh. Kind of wanted to refresh it just so you can see it. Trying to incorporate, you know, a little more kind of visual design. You'll see some kind of movement and action here as we scroll through the page. I can talk a little more to each of these, but again, it's very sales focused, conversion focused, major CTAs, kind of key value drivers here. I think Vic did the icons here, so thanks, Vic. But it's, you know, again, more kind of marketing focus. You've got sort of your credibility, builder logos, and then, you know, a little bit more detail about the actual product down here. And then again, it wraps up with the CTA. This is on my local machine, so it's still not even in the wild yet. Obviously, it'll have the header and the footer, but this is kind of what we're talking about in terms of just quick iteration, getting pages built. This is using a little bit of Bootstrap, but then, yeah, just I think we've turned this thing around between content, design, development in a couple of days. So it's been a big team effort, but cool to kind of see progress in this area. So not sure if you wanted me to talk any bit more about that, Danielle, but that's what I've got.
You want to talk about a little of our kind of MVC2 and the iteration process that we're going to be doing?
Yeah, so there's a second issue for this, which is the MVC2. I believe it may have a gated form of some kind. We're also going to add some FAQs to the page. I'm trying to remember all the other features that'll make it into that. I don't have the MVC2 issue open, but so yeah, again, this is sort of in GitLab fashion, kind of a quick iteration to get a sales page out there. I think we'll be doing a bit more kind of testing and tracking in MVC2 as well. Not sure if I missed anything there, but that's sort of the idea.
Awesome. Anybody have questions for Steven?
Cool.
Erica, you want to kick off the next part?
Yes, I'd love. Let's see. I've got to pull up my thing.
I
Awesome.
can kick it off.
I think it's Erica. Yep. Perfect.
Yeah. So the next section is the shout out section. So this is for anybody to call out someone who helped you out this week. And Danielle, you have the first one.
Yep, quick shout out. I think I'd shout out to Jensen like every week lately, but Jensen spent about 90 minutes with me. That was supposed to be a 25-minute meeting, explaining a little more about GitLab stage adoption through the lens of conversion rates and data. And there's a YouTube video linked here. It's pretty cool and could really inform some of the things we might want to do with our content journey pre-conversion. So big insight takeaways there were most people start with either verify, which is CI/CD, or create, which is basically path to making your first MR. So there's some like very simple things we can do, you know, that mostly live in docs today that could be marketing pages to send them on that journey. And then the other big conversion driver is just adding a buddy to work together with. So That's cool. And there's a ton of graphs and charts in the video. And then also thank you to Mike Pyle, VP Enterprise Sales. I reached out to him as we were working on the enterprise page. Had a great first meeting. Just wanted to hear his thoughts on, what's the human language that happens in a conversation with a customer that closes a deal. And I think he's going to be able to help us unlock a lot more customer conversations. So since I've joined marketing, I don't think I've interacted with a customer yet. So I think we're going to need to, turn that around a little bit for this team, make sure that we're talking to those folks. So I'm just very grateful that he's opened that door. Next up is Stephen.
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to send a quick shout out again to Erica, just because this was a quick project on this enterprise page and she spun up a lot of copy very quickly. I know William chipped in as well. Also, I don't think he's on the call, but thanks to William also. So good job, Erica.
Thanks. I have the next one. I want to +1 that to William. He was extremely helpful in getting that copy together and checking to make sure that everything that I was saying was correct. So thanks, William. And then I also wanted to shout out to Becky for just managing that whole project. It's so helpful to have her kind of monitoring the progress and all the different parts and pieces, so that as someone who just kind of owns one part of the project, I can do that and pass it on and just know that she's going to make sure that the project keeps moving forward. So just want to shout out and thank her. And I think that's the end of the shout out section, unless anybody has something to add before we stop the recording.